Hello everyone, this is Jordan again. I'm here with another programming video. This one covering the topic of spinning a red line using talons to intake a ball and to fire the ball. For this video, we used the triggers of an Xbox controller to take in through some red line motors and to fire out through some red line motors. So for this video, we're going to be using some subsystems that we've made, mainly intake and fire. Those are two subsystems that will be used. You're also going to do a little bit of work in robot.java, and we're also going to create a command up above that is also going to be used in the process of making this. So the first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go to your subsystems tab, right click on it, and you're going to create a new subsystem. And you're going to go in here and click subsystem alt, a subsystem. You click it and you're going to type your name. So what we have done is intake and fire. We named them two separate ones. I'm going to start off by showing off intake. So if you were to be making your one right now, you would type in intake. Well, I already have mine made, so I'm not going to make a new subsystem. Once you have that made, it'll be blank compared to mine, which I have mine fully filled out and everything like that. But it'll be pretty much blank. You'll have your standard imports, your package, that kind of stuff. So starting off, you're going to want to make sure that you import some basic things, such as the motor controllers from the ctre.phoenix.motorcontroller. Once again, make sure that you import your vendor libraries. If you don't remember how, I talked about it in my drivetrain video. But I guess just for a simple little overview, if you hit Control-Shift-P, then you type in vendor libraries, you can click on it, and then you'll have a whole bunch of options, and you'll just add the vendor library through an online link that you can find through the CTRE website, which then you could paste in, and then you'll have the library for this stuff. But yeah, you're going to type in these 3 lines. We're not going to be using a Spark for this. That will be used though later on though, in a future video that I will make, which will consist for our slider that we use, and that video will cover how to program Sparks and using limits with Sparks. But for this one, we're going to be using talents and just redline motors, so all you need to import is these 2 lines right here. So going down a little bit, obviously you got to identify them, so private TalonsSRX. I named mine intake. The reason I named mine intake is because we're obviously just intaking the ball. That's all we're doing. So I thought it'd be a simple name just to call it intake. Simple to remember. And as you can see, I have 2 sparks here. This is for later on. Right now we're just testing with this and it's not done yet. But look out for that video where I will be explaining how to code with sparks and that kind of stuff. And I got some deadbands stated right here. So those will be useful for when we're actually coding. These are just the variables for those, or the inits for these deadbands. So I have 0.02. Then we go down. You're going to need to add this right here, public intake, parenthesis, bracket, which then here you have more basic stuff such as intake, which is what we called our talon, is equal to new TalonsSRX 6. So if you remember correctly, this number right here identifies the CAN ID. So our CAN ID that we wanted ours to be for the intake is 6. We have a lot of motor controllers this year. I think we have like 9 so far. And then next after that, you're going to do intake.setInverted. This line right here makes it really easy, just if you need to invert your motors, just to change this false to true. And it will invert it, so then you don't have to go in and change everything about it. Then intake.configure neutral deadband. This is where the inits come in at. So this right here is put right in here, and then it puts that deadband there for us. These are the Spark things once again, so you don't have to worry about those for this. Then right down here, we will come back to this in a second. This has to do with the command I was talking to you about, so we'll come back to that in 1 second. Then you'll scroll down more. Then you're going to add this bit right here. So public void intake power, which that's what we're just calling it, double I. So we're telling it to add a variable, which is double I. And then this might look familiar from you from one of my other videos. But what this is right here is it's telling to take the intake, which is our talon, and then set it equal to our control mode .% output, and then our variable I, and then demand type, arbitrary feedback forward, and then comma 0. This might look very familiar from the drivetrain, where we use the same thing for the talons here for moving the robot. So this line is the exact same for the firing of the ball. So it's doing the same exact thing, just telling the motor to move with the value it gets, because we're using triggers. Which triggers, if you look on the driver's station, but yeah, so then the next bit down here is the public void ball intake, which that's right there is another thing that we had to add. And we're just going to call it ball intake because we're intaking the ball in this line right here. And we're going to say double L trigger which is the first time we're going to mention it, is equal to, and then we put it at negative 0.35 speed. So what that tells it to do is it's going to go 35% of its speed that it can possibly go, and times that by robot.oi.xbox2 get raw axis 2. So then once you go into OI, you're going to need to make sure that you have all your joysticks coded correctly. In my previous videos, you might have saw that I have coded in some joystick stuff. Once again, make sure you have your imports correct. Make sure you have buttons and the Xbox controller imported. And then you can go in here and you can code in your joysticks and that kind of stuff. You know, public Xbox controller Xbox, or public controller Xbox 2, or the buttons, or whatever you need to do. Then down here, make sure you classify them Xbox equal to new Xbox controller, put in the port, all sorts of stuff like that. But as you can see, we were calling Xbox 2, so the second Xbox controller in port 1. So we're calling that Xbox controller right there. So all you're going to need to do for that is just make sure you have in these lines above. So this line right here and this line right here need to be in for this to work. But what that's doing is this is calling it. So robot.oi, so it's going into the OI and it's pulling out Xbox controller 2. And we're going to tell it to get raw axis 2, which is the second axis on the list. So the way the driver station organizes it once again. So the second axis on your Xbox controller is the trigger compared to the first axis on your Xbox controller being the joystick. So we're telling it to get the second axis of the Xbox controller, and then we're going to tell it to afterwards intake power left trigger. So if you remember correctly, our intake power is this up here. So it's calling the intake power, and that's telling it to where this double I is to take that variable I and multiply it by the trigger value. So if we pull the trigger halfways, that's going to apply half power, and it's going to multiply it by all this up here. So then we can manage how much we want to put out. Okay, so then from there, you only have to do a couple more things. You then have to come up here and make a command. So to make a command, if you remember correctly, is to right click on command and go down to create a new class / command. Then you're going to go and hit command new, a command. Then you're going to name it. I named mine intake ball. So that makes it very simple to remember, because we're just intaking the ball off the ground. I already have mine made though, once again, so I'm not going to actually create it. So we're going to go to intake ball, and most of everything is put in for you as soon as you make it. There was only very few things I had to add, and I had to add requires robot.intake, which that's the subsystem. So in robot, which is this whole project, dot intake, so that's this subsystem. And for that to run smoothly, you're going to need to go into robot.java, and you're going to need to make sure that you go in here and write where the class robot extends time to robot. You're going to need to write public static intake, so that's just classifying it right there. And then also a little bit further down right here under robot init, you're going to need to write intake is equal to new intake. So basically that just classifies it, so then we can use it in this command over here. So yep, once you have the requires line, it will take all the information from intake, which then you can apply. So then in execute, you're going to tell it to robot.intake, so it goes inside the intake subsystem, .ball intake. So it's going to take that one little bit right here, this ball intake, and it's going to run it. That's what the command tells it to do. And that's why the command says execute. So it's going to execute that right there. I don't know. So then the last thing you're going to do is you're going to go back into intake.java, and the part that I said that we would come back to, which is right here, override public void init default command, you're going to need to type this one line, set default command to intake ball, which is the command that we made right here. So what that does is it tells the subsystem this is the command we're going to run. So then that will run the command, and that's how you easily make it to where you can just have an easy way to be able to drive around and run another motor to pick up the ball during this year's competition, just using some talents and redlines. Now let's say you want to fire it. It's basically the same thing, just a little bit different, because we used 2 redlines, and we used a Victor, and we used a Talon. So it's a little bit different, but same premise. So once again, you're going to make another subsystem. It's going to be called fire.java this time, instead of intake, because this time we're firing the ball. Then in here, once again, you're going to need to make the same imports. So you're going to import the CTRE motor control dot asterisk, which, if I haven't explained already, the asterisk is basically just saying all motor controllers that the CTRE makes, instead of saying TalonsSRX, it just imports them all. Same with this can thing right here. Instead of putting a specific one, it just imports them all. So it makes it really nice and easy. And then afterwards, you're going to scroll down a little bit, and you're going to have public class fire extend subsystem, which you're going to need to put private TalonsSRX fire. I'm just calling my TalonsSRX fire. So right there. And then I called my private Victor SPX, I called it fire 2, because the Victor is just going to follow the Talon. So whatever the Talon's doing, the Victor will just follow it. Then I put my deadband again, private static final double deadband fire is equal to 0.02. Then I added this right here, public fire, parenthesis, bracket, fire is equal to new TalonsSRX 5. So this one is the 5th TalonsSRX, that's the can ID. And then the fire 2 is equal to Victor SPX 0. Because the Victors aren't Talons, they have different numbers. So this one is the first Victor that we have on our board, so it's 0. Then we have fire.setInverted false. So basically, once again, it's the inverted line. So if I need to quickly invert the motors, I'm just going to change this to false or true. Same with this, fire2.setInvert. So if I need to quickly change the Victor SPX to be inverted, then I'll change this to true. Then you get the fire.configure neutral deadband. Once again, the deadband. And then here's the part that's different about the Victor, is that you tell the Victor to follow the Talon. So fire 2, which is our Victor SPX, dot follow fire, which the fire is the TalonsSRX. So this line right here just tells the Victor, hey, whatever the Talon's doing, do that. Which makes it really easy if you don't have any Talons left. You can just plug in a Victor and just tell it to follow the Talon. So as you can see, this is very short compared to the intake. But right here, you're going to type in public void, fire power, double F. This will look very familiar to the intake, which you're just going to tell fire.set, control mode, percent output, F, which is our variable, demand type, arbitrary feed forward, 0. Same with the Victor SPS. You're just going to type in the same line since you're fire 2. Then below it, you're going to put public void, ball fire, parentheses, bracket, which then you're going to tell it to double right trigger. And we're going to times it by 100% this time, because we want our fire to shoot as far as we can. Compared to the intake, we don't want the intake to crush the ball, but when we're firing it, it doesn't really matter too much because we're just shooting it out as far as we can. So we're times by 100% of the power, and then once again we're going to call our Xbox controller, Xbox 2, get raw axis 3, because 3 is the right trigger axis, while 2 was the left trigger axis. So this tells it to get the right trigger instead of the left trigger. And then it's going to call firepower right trigger. So firepower right here, and then multiply it by right trigger. From there, we have to create another command, once again for this, which this time I named this one fireball.java. Once again, did barely anything for this. All I did in here was type in this one line right here. So requires parenthesis robot.fire. So it's telling it needs to get this subsystem right here and everything in it. And then you scroll down, and the only other thing I put in this was protected void execute. And in execute, you're going to put robot.fire.ballfire. So then it's just going to pull this bit right here. It's going to pull the ball fire. From there, the last thing you have to do to get this command working inside your subsystem is set default command parentheses new fireball. So it's just going to call this command here, and then it's going to run it. And there we go. It's as simple as that. That's how you code these two, so then you have working Talons and Redline motors together through Xbox controllers. I hope you found this video helpful, and I hope the Force will be with you this year. Good luck to all the teams out there, and I'll see you next time.